Weight loss is certainly a beautiful thing. In the case of the 2017 GMC Acadia, the company certainly sent its first generation to fat camp. This week I'm testing the significantly redesigned model. Let's take a look and see all the changes GMC has made. Now, the first generation Acadia was one of the company's longest running models. If you guys remember, it was first introduced in 2007 as a replacement for a plethora of GM vehicles in the lineup. Now, the original Acadia was considered a full-size crossover vehicle. In fact, it was the company's first ever car-based crossover utility vehicle. And it certainly was a rather practical vehicle, especially for large families who didn't want the typical thirst of a truck-based SUV. Now, the original Acadia was roughly about 10 inches longer than most of its competition. Really, its only competitors in the segment were its platform mates, the Chevrolet Traverse and the Buick Enclave. Now, for this second generation, the GMC is getting the first redesign of the triplets. And you can see the company has significantly shrunken this model. It stretches about 7.2 inches shorter in overall length, about 3 inches narrower, and about 5 inches shorter in height. Now, this vehicle now classifies as a mid-size crossover utility, right in the line with the Honda Pilot, the Toyota Highlander, the Mazda CX-9, and the Ford Explorer. Now, in that shrinkage of its exterior size, the company reduced the weight by about 700 pounds. Now, that is pretty significant. It's made the Acadia more fuel efficient, much more nimble. However, it has sacrificed some interior and cargo space relative to the first generation model. Now, you can see the design of the new Acadia is certainly a very good-looking vehicle. And in fact, I think this is one of the best-looking crossovers on the market. Now, in terms of the exterior design, most people don't tend to buy these for their exterior looks, but the Acadia certainly delivers. This top-of-the-line Denali model that I'm showing you sports its own unique grille with the chrome inserts. These bi-xenon automatic HID headlights with LED daytime running lights do come standard on the Denali. They give the truck a very premium, classy appearance to it, and you can easily see the reduced size of this vehicle in the side profile. These 20-inch wheels come standard on the Denali. I really like the design of them. I'm really happy that GMC resisted the urge to put these gaudy chrome wheels like the previous generation. And around the sides, you can see a lot of the overall length was chopped off in the front and rear overhangs. This vehicle has a very nicely proportioned design. It goes extremely well, especially with this crimson red pearl exterior color. Now, at back, the taillights certainly remind you of other crossovers. In fact, a lot of you have compared this vehicle to the Dodge Durango and its looks. I think it's a particularly handsome vehicle. I like the way the LED accented taillights kind of mimic the front headlights. The dual exhaust on the Denali also finishes off the rear end, and it makes the truck look very classy, very understated, but also very, very premium. And it shares a platform with that redesigned Cadillac XT5 that I showed you, so it's a completely different platform. Now, if you guys are wondering what is GMC planning to do with or GM is planning to do with the other crossover twins, the Traverse and the Enclave, I'm sorry, those vehicles will be redesigned in the coming years, and they may stay in that full-size realm, leaving the Acadia to take up that newer mid-size realm. But enough about the exterior. Let's take a look at the interior and see all of the changes that GMC has made this year. Since my Acadia is the top-of-the-line Denali, it does come standard with the company's smart key access system with push-button start and remote start. This is the company's new key fob. It's a very nice, sturdy-feeling key fob. I like that. To use the remote start, you have to lock the vehicle, so push the lock button, and then push this button here and hold it until it starts. And it's a very nice feature to have, of course. It turns on the heated or cooled seats and the air conditioning or heater, whatever you have it set to. Now, approaching the vehicle, it does have the smart entry, so all you have to do is keep the key fob on you, touch this button here, and that unlocks the door for you. Now, Looking at the interior, you can see the design is very traditional GM. It has the traditional design elements that you've seen on some of the current models. The seats on the Denali are certainly very plush, very nice leather. It's heated and cooled on this trim. There's also Denali stitching embroidered in the headrest and in the steering wheel, just to remind you that you have the special model. You have the top of the line version. Even on the floor mats it shows that to you. Now, stepping inside the current Acadia, it's a very nice, easy step in height, and the seat automatically moves back and forth to give you more space getting in and shutting the door, of course. It has a pretty nice solid thunk to it. Now, to get it out of the remote start mode, you have to keep the key fob inside the vehicle, otherwise it will shut off. But when you push your foot on the brake and then push the button here, it turns all the electronics on. You can see it has a power tilt telescoping steering wheel. The Denali version has its own unique set of gauges with that larger LCD display that is configurable if you guys want to change the way it looks. Now, looking at the rest of this interior, it basically goes in theme with that we are professional grade image that GMC likes to portray. You have very nice materials in here. Stitching on the dashboard, it's all soft touch. You have some real aluminum trim on the center stack. The door panels are all soft touch right here with more leather on the armrest right here. It has some pretty nice looking wood grain accents here. I like the low gloss. They do feel a little bit plasticky though. The window is automatic up down for the driver only. It's automatic down for the rest of the windows, but not automatic up, only on the driver's side. And you can see here, overall I think the cabin in here looks very nice, and I particularly like the gauges that you get on the Denali trim. The lower trims will have a slightly different look in terms of the gauge cluster arrangement. Now, this steering wheel is also specific to the Denali. You can see it has its own unique badging. Very nice leather, very good 9-3 grips. You have real aluminum trim, lots of steering wheel buttons, controls here for your heated steering wheel, the adaptive cruise. This basically changes the display however you want it to look. And you can configure the center display if you'd like. Now, there are a couple of things in here that bothers me. Now, first of all, the materials in here are solid, but the fit and finish in my particular tester isn't the best, which is a little disappointing considering mine only has 1,600 miles on it. I'm noticing some of the panel gaps right here are a little inconsistent. Especially along the center stack here, and you can see especially on this side here, there's a big gap here that's just not fitting together properly, and the plastic down here is cheap, or it's hard plastic, but the grading is nice. But I'm a little disappointed to say that the fit and finish on my particular tester is a little bit off, considering this is the top of the line Denali trim. Now, the rest of the controls in here are pretty good. You have large volume button or volume knob here, good size tuning knob, pretty well labeled buttons here. Home screen basically takes you to all your latest sources. This is the latest version of the GMC IntelliLink system. It works very well. It does come standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. That's what the projection app is for. The rest of this, you have your rear seat climate controls, you have your camera system, you have 4G LTE, it's a wireless hotspot just like all the other GM vehicles that you have to pay a subscription for. The nav system is basically the same nav head unit you find in the other products. It works very well. The touch response in here is very good. It is quick, one of the quicker ones on the market, so GM has made steady improvements to the touch screen, especially for these later renditions, and combine that with the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it works very well. Now, when you put the vehicle into reverse, you do have a nice backup camera with trajectory, you have front and rear parking sensors, and my tester, because it's a Denali with the technology package, it gives you a surround view 360-degree camera. You can see here, it's very similar to what you'll find in some Nissan Infiniti products. When you put it into drive, you have a front camera here, so you can see, where the vehicle is going when you're parking. It's very, very useful. Even though this vehicle is smaller, it's a nice feature to have, especially for a family-size crossover. Now, looking down here, you have your it's 3-zone automatic climate control, one for the driver, passenger, and for the rear seats. Nice knobs here, very well labeled. Your heated and cooled seat controls are down here. Nice little storage right here. There's no wireless phone charger here like the Cadillac XT5, and the gear selector here is just a 6-speed automatic transmission. That's the standard transmission, down 2 gears versus the Cadillac version of this car. It does have a manual mode here. When you put it into L, you can control it from this little button here. There's no paddles on the wheel. This is still a family vehicle, so don't be looking for stuff like that. Down here is your controller for your 4-wheel drive system. Now, it's very similar to the Cadillac XT5, kind of where it has the torque management system, the twin clutch. It's basically always going to default to either two-wheel drive, which is front drive, or four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, basically. There's no low range. When you twist this knob over here, you can see the all-wheel drive light lights up to let you know that the vehicle is in four-wheel drive. This is the sport mode here. It basically activates torque vectoring. I'll show you guys that in the test drive later. There's also an off-road mode here, and then a trailer towing mode. If you guys are going to be towing, this vehicle will tow about 4,000 pounds. Over here you have your park control switch buttons and then your lane keep assist. This vehicle has active lane keeping assist to keep you in the lanes, so that's very nice to have. Now looking at the glove compartment here, it is damped. It's a very large size, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Very good storage in here. The cup holders are nice and deep. They're wide. The center console here is padded. It's very comfortable, very good space in here. Your USB and your power outlet, there's two USB ports and an aux jack in there, so you can basically hide your cords. Now my tester has the optional panoramic sunroof. It has this little retractable sunshade that you have to push this button here to release. It does open only on the front. The back has its own actual glass portion, but it doesn't open. It's a very nice feature to have. Some competitors still do not offer this feature, but it is an extra for about $1,400. Now overall, the design of the current Acadia's interior is very handsome. Some fit and finish issues I'm seeing here, but it has all the technology, the conveniences, the luxury touches that you pretty much expect in a top-of-the-line vehicle like this. Checking out the second row of the Acadia, you can see my tester has the optional bucket seats. Now, if you guys want, you can get a 7-passenger configuration at no charge. Now, most of the models, actually the SLE2 trims and up, will come standard with the bucket seats in the second row. And this lowers your seating capacity to only 6 because there's 2 in the front, 2 in the second row, and then 2 in the rear. This is not seat 3 across in the back in the third row like some of its competitors. Now, stepping inside the second row, you can see it's very, very comfortable. This is basically just as nice as the front seats, and you can see plenty of leg room, very good foot space. There's a nice flat floor here, so you can walk between the seats if you need to. There's a nice little armrest right here, and the buckets themselves, very good support. The leather feels good. You have your own separate climate control switches back here with heated second row seats as well, and an actual household power outlet and 2 USB quick chargers right here. Now looking over here, you have a nice little pull-out storage bin. That's very nice. And then you have 2 map pockets as well for the front or the second row passengers. Now one thing this vehicle is missing, there is no retractable sunshade here, which is a little bit surprising. And then you can see here the sunroof is very nice to have because it lets in a lot of light into the cabin. But my tester is missing an optional DVD rear entertainment system that'll put DVD headrest in the front headrest, which is a nice feature to have, like another $2,000. I'd probably skip it and just get your kids some iPads, but overall the second row is a very nice place to spend time. Now to access the third row, it's not quite as easy as the Honda Pilot. You have to pull this lever right here instead of a button and then move the seat forward and it will slide forward automatically. It's not a spring-loaded actuator like on the new Honda Pilot or the MDX that I showed you guys. Now getting into the third row, it's definitely shrunken compared to the last generation Acadia for sure. You can see that this third row is now mostly reserved for kids. Now when I move the seat back here, my knees are practically against the second row, and you will have to ask them to move the seat up to give you more space, and it's definitely much more narrow in here. The old one would seat 3 across, this one obviously doesn't. The materials back here are all hard touch plastic, but at least GM did give you a nice little power outlet right here for a USB connector for the third row. It is not on this side, however, only on the driver's side, but there is nice LED lighting throughout the cabin, rear seat air vents back here, and I'd probably be okay on short trips, but the Honda Pilot definitely offers more room. This is very similar to that Toyota Highlander I showed you guys. Now our power tailgate will come standard on SLE trims and up. My tester, being the Denali, has the hands-free power liftgate function. Now you can see the cargo capacity of this new one has definitely shrunk versus the previous one. With third row up, you're only looking at about 12.8 cubic feet of space, which is roughly about half what the old one had. So you do lose a lot in the cargo capacity. Now when you fold this third row down, you pull this lever here that automatically, or that pushes the seat forward. It gives you a pretty flat low floor line. When these two seats are folded, you get about 41 cubic feet of space, and then when you fold down the second row as well, you get about 79 cubic feet of space. Now the old one offered 116 cubic feet of space, so again, this is significantly reduced, but you have a much lighter vehicle, a much more nimble vehicle, and not everybody needed the huge size of the previous generation Acadia. Underneath the hood of the new Acadia, this is the up-level motor. Now, the previous generation only offered a V6. It basically needed it. It was a very big vehicle. Now, this is actually an all-new V6. It's the same 3.6-liter direct injection variable cylinder management V6 that I showed you in the Cadillac XT5. Same numbers here. It produces a very impressive 310 horsepower. 171 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you're counting, that's roughly about 22 more horses versus the previous generation. Now, if you guys want the lower price models, they do offer a new 2.5-liter four-cylinder that came out of the Chevrolet Malibu. That produces about 194 horsepower. Now, I haven't driven the four-cylinder, but I probably would say pay the extra $1,000 to get the V6, because especially if you're going to be towing, if you're going to be hauling people constantly. Now, fuel economy also improved greatly with this generation. It's now rated at 1825 with all-wheel drive and that 6-speed automatic. That's basically in line with the Highlander, a little bit below the new Pilot and the new Mazda CX-9, but better than the Explorer with the V6. Now, compared to the old Acadia, this one is about 3 miles per gallon better. Now, the towing capacity was reduced in this generation to only 4,000 pounds. The old one did 5,200 pounds, but again, this car weighs roughly about 700 pounds less. Let's get out on the road and see how it all works, shall we? So in regards to the previous generation Acadia, I had a lot of opportunities to drive it as a rental car. It was a very popular vehicle along with its platform mates because it was very large, lots of space, and it was relatively cheap to buy as well. So this new one, it's a pretty big change from the original. Let's take a look and see how it drives differently. And immediately I'm noticing just how smaller this car feels. I mean, when you shrink a car so significantly, you're going to make it more nimble, and that's exactly the way the new Acadia drives. The 3.6-liter V6 moves this SUV out very nicely, and the steering is also relatively precise if, you know, crossover slow. This is not a sporty car to drive still by any means, but it's much more manageable. It gets down the road, you know, with a much smaller footprint, and GMC has pretty much preserved the refinement of this car. It still has a very comfortable ride, it's still very quiet, and the new V6 engine has a nice noise to it. It's the same motor in the Cadillac XT5 that I showed you. Smooth, refined, very linear power, a little bit light on torque, surprisingly. You have to kind of bury your foot to get it to go anywhere. And, you know, just like the XT5, the all-wheel drive system in this car stays primarily in front-wheel, actually stays in front-wheel drive entirely until you move the dial over to 4x4 or 4-wheel drive lock, where it will split the power 50-50. It's kind of like that, similar to that twin-clutch all-wheel drive system in the XT5. You also have a sport mode here. And, you know, it's a pretty easy, you know, crossover to drive on a daily basis. I have to tell you, the wheel spin is rather comical, and when you have your foot planted, this car has a fair amount of torque steer, so I recommend switching it over to its 4-wheel drive sport mode, and let's try that acceleration run again. Now it's drama-free. You can see this car gets out of its own way pretty nicely. I would expect a 0 to 60 time right under 7 seconds. There isn't really much test data, but, you know, the biggest difference between this car and the XT5 is the transmission. This has the 6-speed automatic, whereas the XT5 has the 8-speed auto, which I raved about. It's a very good transmission. This is pretty good. I'm honestly not really noticing the lack of 2 extra gears. It's paired very nicely with this V6, and, you know, the visibility in here is very excellent. Huge side mirrors, traditional shape of a crossover, so you have very good commanding view of the road. No blind spots really to speak of, although this car does have the blind spot monitoring, the active lane keeping assist. That comes with the driver confidence package 1 and 2. You know, this is a very, very nice, safe feeling family crossover that has that nimble feeling that you expect, that you find in the Japanese competitors, but still has that nice, solid, you know, American GMC feel when it's gliding down the road. Now, even though this is a relatively large, you know, crossover, still, it gets down the road pretty nicely, and the transmission transmission is nice and quick to downshift, so attacking back roads isn't as terrible as you think, especially when you compare it to the previous generation of this car, which was just a boat to drive compared to its competitors. I mean, that thing was basically longer than a Chevy Tahoe. You had to go to a Suburban if you wanted it to be bigger than the Acadia and Traverse and Enclave triplets, but overall, I'm really impressed with the way this drives. Is this my favorite driving crossover? I can't say. I actually prefer the way this drives over the Highlander and the Pilot. I just showed you guys those. I haven't showed you the new Mazda CX-9. I will be showing that to you later next month when I do get one to test, and I imagine that's probably going to be the sportiest crossover to drive. I mean, these crossovers in general aren't sporty cars to drive at all, but these newer versions certainly are much more pleasant versus their predecessors. You really notice the torque vectoring when you have it in sport mode. Basically, you can just take a right or left, floor the accelerator, and you can feel the system shifting power to the outside wheel to kind of help get it around the corner, which is very similar to Acura's super handling all-wheel drive. It's a very nice surprise in this car. I mean, this car, to me, I prefer the way it drives over its platform mate, the XT5. I prefer the interior space in this car. It feels much more roomy, which, of course, is still smaller, when compared to the previous generation. But I'll take that, considering this car is much more easy and much more nimble to drive when you go down the road. Now, this new generation Acadia is introducing the latest version of GMC's driver assistance tech. My tester has an optional technology package. It gives you full speed adaptive cruise control with automatic braking. To set it, you basically just have to turn it on, set the cruise control. It'll set the follow distance by using the buttons here on the controls, and this car will bring the vehicle to a complete stop. And combine that with the active lane keeping assist, the Acadia will basically drive itself down the road for short periods of time. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel, of course. It's basically similar to all of its competitor system, but it is better than what the Highlander, the 16 Highlander that I showed you, where it'll shut off at like 18 miles an hour. This will go to a full stop, just like the Honda Pilot that I showed you, the latest version, but it doesn't have that bulbous, bulky minivan feel that the Pilot has when you go down the road. Now, coming to my conclusion of this review, I have to admit that I'm pretty impressed with the new Acadia. I think that it's definitely one of the best choices in the segment, and it's also one of the newest choices, and I would rate it very highly. I'd rate it above the Highlander, the Santa Fe, and the Kia Sport or Sorento, the latest versions that I showed you for those vehicles as well, just because I prefer the exterior design. I like the nimble feel. I like the engine in this car. It's a naturally aspirated V6, one of the most powerful offerings in the class. So, I mean, there's a lot of win-wins when GMC, went with a smaller platform. It's definitely stiffer. It's definitely quiet on the inside, and it's a really pleasant crossover to drive on an everyday basis. Now, you're probably wondering what is what's a couple of numbers for this car. Now, I'm going to talk about the fuel economy really quick because they did improve the gas mileage significantly with this new version. I've been averaging, let's see here, I go to the trip computer. I've been averaging about almost 17 miles per gallon, about 16.6. On the highway, I took it out and I got about 26 miles per gallon, which is right in line with the numbers that I got with the Highlander, with the Pilot. Much better than the previous generation, which was like 15 in the city, 22 on the highway if you were lucky. So the fuel economy is good. This vehicle does have the cylinder deactivation, but does not have the automatic start-stop that the XT5 has. So that's one of the reasons why the Cadillac gets a little bit better gas mileage than this. But again, you're not really going to notice it too much in the real world. 1 mpg is not going to make the biggest difference. Now, price-wise, GMC actually did lower the cost of this new one because it is smaller. It starts at just over $30,000, which is cheaper than the Mazda CX-9, the Highlander, the Explorer, the Pilot. It is cheaper to start. However, that model is for a base SL with front-wheel drive and a 4-cylinder engine. The only other competitor that offers a 4-cylinder is the Highlander, which I would told you guys to pretty much avoid. I'd probably say spend the extra grand, go for the 6 in this car. It's definitely worth it. Just for moments like that, especially if you guys are planning to haul lots of stuff and people, you're going to want the power, the refinement of the 6-cylinder, which does tow up to 4,000 pounds. Now, my tester is much more expensive, and this is where I'm having a little bit of sticker shock with the latest crop of General Motors products. The Denali version that I'm driving starts at $46,000, which is right in line there with the fully loaded CX-9, Pilot, Highlander, But then there are still options you can add on this top-of-the-line Denali that I'm showing you. The panoramic sunroof is like $1,400. The advanced technology package that gives you adaptive cruise, the surround view camera, that's another like $1,500. The continuously active damping chassis control, that's like an active suspension that adjusts the dampers when you go over bumps. It gives a very fantastic ride quality. The ride quality in this car is definitely one of the tops in the class. That's another $1,200. I may say choose it, especially if you're going to be going on long trips all the time. And then the paint color on my tester is like $500. My tester is stickered for a rather eye-watering $52,300, which makes it significantly more expensive than its competitors. A Ford Explorer can get this expensive. However, with the Ford, you do get more power. You get a twin-turbo V6 in the Sport and Platinum models. When you go for a limited trim with the naturally aspirated V6, it's like just over $50,000. So this is approaching luxury SUV pricing, which, you know, this is an all-new design. I suspect GMC will be launching this car with rebates in the coming months after it's been on the market for a little bit. So you can, in typical American car fashion, you can lower the price significantly if you wait a little bit. However, you will be paying a premium if you guys want to be one of the first customers to drive this car in your neighborhood. Now, with all that said, would I choose this over, you know, the new Pilot, the new Highlander that I showed you guys? I would probably take it over a Highlander. The Pilot definitely has this car beat in terms of value. I just prefer the styling and the driving dynamics of this car because it's smaller and the V6 is, you know, it's a little bit quicker feeling to me. It makes better noises. You know, it's push. You know, it's really just a matter of, do you prefer the Honda or do you prefer the design, you know, of the GMC and actually prefer this, you know, this brand over Honda. So it really comes down to brand loyalty. There isn't really a wrong choice, but I will reserve my final judgment until I drive the latest CX-9 in choosing the best, you know, of the mid-size crossover vehicles. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview of the completely redesigned 2017 GMC Acadia. If you guys are looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and keep subscribed to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.